Maya Rodriguez had a way of seeing the world that others often missed. It wasn't just about angles or lighting, it was about capturing the soul of a moment, the unspoken story in a fleeting glance, the raw emotion behind a carefully constructed facade. This talent, honed through years of relentless work, had lifted her from the gritty streets of Queens to the polished floors of Manhattan's elite events. Her camera was less a piece of equipment and more an extension of her own heart and eye. Her journey hadn't been easy. The daughter of immigrants, Maya's first camera was a second-hand Polaroid she bought with money saved from her waitressing job. While her friends were at college parties, she was developing film in a makeshift darkroom in her tiny apartment bathroom, studying the masters and taking any gig she could get. She shot birthdays, small-town weddings, local newspaper assignments, and for a solid year, cheesy family portraits at a mall studio. Each job was a lesson, every click of the shutter a step forward. Now at 32, she was the owner of Maya Rodriguez Photography, a sought-after name for those who wanted more than just pictures. They wanted art. She was booked as the exclusive photographer for the launch of Celeste, a new luxury handbag line. This was a big one. The event was hosted by Victoria Sterling, the wife of the brand's CEO. Victoria wasn't just a host. She was the self-proclaimed arbiter of taste in her circle. Her wealth was generational, a vast fortune built on her great-grandfather's steel empire, and she wore it like a second skin. She believed in pedigree and bloodlines and in the unspoken rules of the upper echelon. To her, people were either born into the right world or they weren't. There was no in-between. She judged success not by accomplishment, but by the name on your invitations and the designer tag on your dress. The venue was a stunning Soho gallery, all white walls, high ceilings, and minimalist decor designed to make the jewel-tone handbags pop. Maya, dressed in a practical yet chic black jumpsuit, moved through the space with a quiet confidence, her Nikon D850 a familiar weight in her hands. She was in her element, capturing the elegant details. The way a silk dress flowed, the sparkle of champagne in a crystal flute, the excited chatter of the city's fashionistas. Her assistant, a young, eager intern named Ben, pointed towards a tall, impeccably dressed woman with platinum blonde hair swept into a severe chignon. "That's her," he whispered. "Victoria Sterling." Maya nodded and made her way over, intending to introduce herself as the event organizer had instructed. "Mrs. Sterling?" Maya began, offering a professional smile. "I'm Maya Rodriguez, the photographer for tonight. It's a pleasure to meet you. The space looks incredible." Victoria turned, her eyes sweeping over Maya in a swift, dismissive motion. She took in the functional jumpsuit, the sturdy camera harness, the comfortable-looking boots. Her lip curled ever so slightly. "Right. The photographer," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. She didn't extend a hand. "I was expecting someone else. The agency sent over my portfolio," Maya replied smoothly, refusing to be ruffled. "They assured me my style was what you were looking for." "Portfolios can be deceiving," Victoria sniffed, turning her attention to a passing waiter holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres. "Just try to stay out of the way. I want you to focus on the bags and my guests, the important ones. Don't waste your time on candidates of the staff. We're not paying you by the hour to snap pictures of nobodies. And for heaven's sake, try not to look like a tourist who wandered in off the street. This is a high-fashion event, not a county fair." Maya felt a familiar heat rise in her chest, but she tamped it down. This wasn't the first time she'd been underestimated. She'd learned long ago that the best response to this kind of snobbery was to deliver work so brilliant it couldn't be ignored. "Of course," she said, her voice even. "I'll be sure to capture the evening perfectly for you." Victoria had already turned her back, dismissing Maya as completely as she would a piece of lint on her couture gown. Throughout the first hour, Maya felt Victoria's eyes on her. Every time she knelt to get a low angle or moved a piece of decor to frame a shot, she could feel the woman's disapproval radiating across the room. Victoria would whisper to her friends, casting sidelong glances at Maya, their laughter sharp and mocking. It was clear what she thought. Maya was just the hired help, a picture taker, a nobody from nowhere who had no business being in their rarefied world. The conflict was silent, but to Maya it was as loud as a shouting match. She gritted her teeth and kept shooting. The real story of the night, she knew, was yet to unfold. For the next 2 hours, Maya worked with a focused intensity that bordered on defiance. She poured every ounce of her skill into her craft, her lens capturing the life of the party with breathtaking clarity. She caught the subtle, expensive texture of the handbags, the genuine, unguarded laughter of guests, and the electric buzz of a successful launch. Her photographs weren't just images, they were narratives. She knew with the unshakable certainty of an artist that the results would be spectacular. It was her silent, powerful rebuttal to Victoria Sterling's disdain. She would let the work speak for itself. The main part of the evening arrived. The official unveiling of the Celeste Star, the collection's signature piece, a clutch encrusted with sapphires. Victoria Sterling, looking regal and smug, stepped onto a small, elevated platform in the center of the gallery. A hush fell over the crowd as a spotlight found her. Maya positioned herself at the edge of the platform, kneeling to get the perfect upward angle that would make Victoria look powerful, a shot she knew the woman would secretly adore despite her contempt. "Darlings, thank you all for coming," Victoria began, her voice smooth as silk. "It means the world to my husband and me that you are here to celebrate the launch of Celeste. It is a brand built on a foundation of heritage, quality, and above all an appreciation for the finer things in life. It's about understanding that true luxury isn't something one can simply buy, it's something one is born into. It's about class." Her eyes scanned the audience, a queen surveying her court. Then her gaze landed on Maya, still kneeling, focused on her viewfinder. A cruel, premeditated smile touched Victoria's lips. She saw her opening. "Speaking of class," she continued, her voice taking on a sharper, more performative edge. "We strive to ensure every detail of our events reflects our brand's values. From the champagne to the flowers and, of course, the people we hire." She paused, letting the statement hang in the air. Then she gestured, a dismissive flick of her wrist, directly at Maya. "Our photographer, for instance." Every head in the room swiveled towards Maya. The spotlight seemed to widen, catching her in its glare. She froze, her finger hovering over the shutter button. "This wasn't part of the script. I had my assistant do a little digging, as I always do," Victoria said, her voice laced with mock surprise. "And I discovered something rather amusing about Miss Rodriguez, is it? Before she was gracing us with her presence tonight, our exclusive, high-fashion photographer had a rather more humble beginning. It seems not too long ago she was the resident photographer at the Bay Terrace shopping mall, taking family portraits in front of a cheesy autumn backdrop. Can you imagine?" A wave of shocked murmurs and stifled snickers rippled through the crowd. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. She slowly lowered her camera, her body rigid. It was true. That mall job had paid her rent for a year while she built her freelance business. She'd never been ashamed of it. It was part of her story, part of her hustle. But in Victoria Sterling's mouth it became a dirty secret, a mark of shame. "A mall photographer!" Victoria exclaimed, savoring the humiliation she was inflicting. "Then I heard she spent years as, what do you call it, a stringer? Chasing ambulances and snapping photos of local bake sales for some little paper out in Queens. Essentially a roaming photographer, the kind you shoo away from your private events." The term hung in the air, though chup on Dow. A wandering, low-class picture taker. Victoria was systematically stripping away Maya's professional identity in front of her peers, her clients, her entire industry. She was reducing years of hard work, talent, and ambition into a caricature of a desperate, social-climbing amateur. One has to wonder how someone goes from a shopping mall kiosk to a Celeste launch, Victoria said, looking around at her guests, seeking their agreement. "It certainly makes you question the judgment of the agencies we hire. It proves that a fancy camera and a decent portfolio can fool some people, but breeding always shows." Maya's heart was pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She felt hundreds of eyes on her, some pitiful, some scornful, most just coldly curious, watching the spectacle unfold. She was completely, utterly alone. The air crackled with her shame. She pushed herself to her feet, her voice trembling but clear as she spoke into the charged silence. "Mrs. Sterling, my past work is part of the journey that made me the artist I am today. I am proud of every job that got me here. The agency hired me based on the quality of my work, which speaks for itself." Victoria let out a short, barking laugh. "Oh, darling, you have spirit, I'll give you that. But your art isn't what we're discussing. We're discussing your suitability. Hard work doesn't buy class, and it certainly doesn't buy you a place here among us. This is an A-list event, not a family reunion at the local park." She delivered the final, crushing blow. "Now, if you wouldn't mind," she said, her voice dripping with finality, "I believe there's a lovely platter of mini quiches by the bar that would be a perfect subject for your particular talents. Run along." The humiliation was absolute. Laughter, no longer stifled, broke out among Victoria's clique. Ben, her in turn, looked on from the corner, pale and horrified. But he was just a kid, powerless to intervene. Maya stood frozen for a moment longer, her camera feeling impossibly heavy in her hands. She had been publicly tried and convicted of not belonging. With as much dignity as she could muster, she turned away from the stage, her face burning, and walked towards the edge of the room, the sound of Victoria's triumphant voice and the crowd's chatter echoing behind her. Maya retreated to the periphery of the room, her professional composure a fragile dam holding back a flood of shame and anger. She found a dark corner near the service entrance, her back against the cool wall, and took a deep, shaky breath. The laughter and chatter of the party felt distant, a cruel echo from a world she had just been violently ejected from. She looked at her camera, the instrument of her passion, and for the first time it felt like a burden. Victoria's words circled in her mind. Roaming photographer. Mall kiosk. Hard work doesn't buy class. Was that all they saw? Was her entire career, built on grit and talent, so easily erased by the sneer of a woman born with a silver spoon? She was so lost in her misery that she didn't notice the subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. The ambient noise began to quiet, replaced by a wave of deferential murmurs. A path was clearing through the center of the gallery. Maya looked up, distracted, and saw a woman moving with an aura of calm, undisputed authority that silenced everyone in her wake. She was in her late 60s with a sharp silver bob piercing blue eyes behind iconic, thick-framed glasses, and a simple elegant black dress that screamed power far more than Victoria's flashy couture. Maya's breath caught in her throat. It was Annette Sterling, the legendary formidable editor-in-chief of American Vogue. Annette Sterling wasn't just in the fashion world. She was the fashion world. Victoria, still preening on her platform, saw her namesake approaching and beamed, clearly assuming the icon was coming to congratulate her. "Annette, darling, I'm so thrilled you could make it," she gushed, descending the steps to greet her. Annette offered a polite but icy nod, her eyes scanning the room with an unnerving intensity. "Victoria," she said, her voice quiet yet carrying across the now silent gallery. Her gaze swept past the socialite and settled, with purpose, on the corner where Maya was trying to make herself invisible. Annette ignored Victoria's outstretched hand and walked directly towards Maya. The entire party held its collective breath, watching the scene unfold. Annette Sterling, the most powerful woman in fashion, was striding past the host, past the CEOs and celebrities, to speak to the humiliated photographer. She stopped a foot in front of Maya. She didn't offer pity or a consoling smile. Instead, her sharp eyes appraised Maya with a look of professional curiosity. "You're Maya Rodriguez," she stated, not as a question but as a confirmation. Maya, stunned, could only nod. "Yes," she managed to whisper. "I thought so," Annette said. "I've been following your work since that photo essay you did on the dockworkers in Red Hook. Gritty. Honest. It had soul." She gestured vaguely at the opulent party around them, something that is in very short supply in rooms like this. She then turned her head slightly, raising her voice so that everyone, especially Victoria, could hear her clearly. "I find it fascinating," she began, her tone analytical like a professor dissecting a failed experiment, "that in an industry that is supposedly about vision and what's next, so many people remain hopelessly blind." Her gaze finally fell upon a pale, frozen Victoria. "Victoria, you spoke of class and breeding. A rather archaic vocabulary, don't you think? True class in my world is talent. It's the eye to see what others miss. It's the drive to create something beautiful out of nothing." She took a step closer to Maya, subtly positioning herself as a shield. "You called Ms. Rodriguez a roaming photographer. You meant it as an insult. But let me tell you what that really means. It means she knows how to find a story, not just stage one. It means she knows how to capture truth. That mall portrait studio you mocked? That's where you learn about character, about families, about the human face, the very thing half the people in this room have tried to freeze and erase. That local paper? That's where you learn about deadlines, grit, and how to make a compelling image when you have nothing to work with." Annette's voice was a blade, cutting through the snobbery and leaving Victoria utterly exposed. High fashion doesn't need more heiresses who think a brand name is a substitute for a personality. It needs authenticity. It needs visionaries. It needs people like Maya Rodriguez. The reversal was swift and brutal. The whispers in the crowd were no longer mocking Maya. They were filled with awe for Annette and disdain for Victoria's monumental blunder. Victoria's face had gone from smug to confused to a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. She had not only insulted a photographer, she had publicly displayed her ignorance in front of the one person whose opinion could make or break her entire social and professional standing. Annette Sterling turned her back on Victoria completely, giving her full attention back to Maya. She delivered the final, decisive blow with the calm precision of a surgeon. "I was going to have my office call your agent tomorrow, Ms. Rodriguez, but this seems a more direct route," she said, her voice ringing with clarity in the silent room. "I want you to shoot the cover for our next September issue. We're doing a feature on the new face of American artistry. It seems you've just become the lead story." The silence that followed Annette Sterling's words was shattered by a sound Maya had not expected: applause. It started with a few of the younger, more artistically minded guests, but quickly spread. People who had been whispering about her just minutes ago were now openly clapping. They weren't just applauding a job offer. They were applauding the dramatic fall of a tyrant and the righteous rise of an underdog. Maya stood speechless, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. The burning shame had been instantly extinguished, replaced by a dizzying, brilliant vindication. Annette Sterling gave her a small, knowing nod, a gesture that said, "Welcome to the table. You've earned your seat." Ben Hur in turn rushed over, his eyes wide with hero worship. "Oh my God, Maya. That was epic. The September issue," he whispered, practically vibrating with excitement. The energy in the room had irrevocably shifted. Guests now approached Maya with reverence, handing her business cards, murmuring congratulations, their faces alight with newfound respect. "Your work is phenomenal," said a well-known gallery owner. "We must connect." A fashion blogger who had been part of Victoria's snickering clique moments before now asked meekly, "Could I possibly get a quote about this, Miss Rodriguez?" Maya, with newfound poise, simply smiled and said, "My agent handles my press." Meanwhile, Victoria Sterling was a shipwreck in a sea of her own making. Her face was a ghastly shade of white, her perfect chignon suddenly looking severe and witch-like. Her friends subtly drifted away, finding urgent reasons to check their phones or refresh their drinks, desperate to avoid the stench of her social suicide. Her husband, a portly man whose face was now a thunderous shade of red, strode over to her. He wasn't whispering words of comfort. His hushed tones were clipped and furious. Maya could just make out the words, "Per nightmare." Made the brand a laughingstock. "Fix this now." Forced into a corner, humiliated on her own stage, Victoria had no choice. She stumbled towards Maya, her husband prodding her from behind. Her eyes, which had held so much contempt, were now filled with a desperate, pleading panic. "Miss Rodriguez," she began, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. It seems I have made a terrible mistake. My words were out of line. I do hope you can accept my sincerest apology." The apology was weak, insincere, and clearly coerced, but it was a surrender nonetheless. Maya looked at the woman who had tried to break her. She felt no desire for further revenge, only a cool sense of victory. "Thank you, Mrs. Sterling," she said, her voice calm and professional. "I accept your apology. Now, if you'll excuse me, Miss Sterling and I have a cover to discuss." With that, she turned her back on the vanquished socialite and gave her full attention to Annette, leaving Victoria to stew in the public ruin of her own making. Annette gestured for Maya to walk with her toward a quieter area. "Never let anyone," she said, her voice low and firm, "make you apologize for your journey. The dirt under your fingernails from climbing the mountain is a badge of honor, not a stain to be washed away. Your past isn't your weakness. It's your lens. It's why you see the world the way you do. That's not something you can inherit." The rest of the evening was a blur for Maya. She stayed not as a vendor but as a guest of honor. She packed up her gear with Ben's help, both of them energized by a current of pure adrenaline. As she left the gallery, she saw the catering staff and valets, the other invisible people of the night, watching her. One of the waitresses, a young woman who reminded Maya of herself a decade ago, gave her a huge, hopeful smile and a thumbs up. In that small gesture, Maya felt a deeper sense of success than even the Vogue cover could provide. The incident didn't just restore her honor. It forged it into something stronger. It had become a testament to her worth, proving that character and talent were the only currencies that truly mattered. Walking out into the cool Manhattan night, the city lights glittering like 1,000 promises, Maya felt a profound sense of peace. She was no longer just a photographer trying to make it. She was an artist who had been seen, a worker who had been vindicated, and a woman who knew without a shadow of a doubt exactly who she was and what she was worth. The future wasn't just bright, it was hers to shoot.